How was it working with Randy Savage?
If I've ever been in love with another guy, it would have been Randy. That son of a bitch was my best friend. I mean, Brutus was like hanging out, but Brutus was kind of like a lost puppy. I was friends with his sister in high school. Brutus was a few years behind, so when we'd go to the beach, we'd leave at 8 o'clock and we would just leave him behind. He was too young to hang out with us. He got in the wrestling business, and it was just kind of like a thing where he was a lost puppy and a friend. He kind of hung around, and it was just surface level stuff. But Randy and I became really good friends. And he was just intense. He was kind of like David Schultz, man. He was just like so intense. He'd call me up at 3 and hey, Hogan, man, I don't like that finish. You know, I thought about pulling Elizabeth. Now I think you're right. No, maybe I'm right. I just don't know, but let's talk. He called me at 3 in the morning. The only other people that call me at 3 in the morning about wrestling would be Vince. And I love that shit, right?
Yeah.
Because that was my whole life. So Randy lived right down the beach. We were together every day. We worked out at my house every day. We'd charter planes and fly out or go commercial, but we traveled together everywhere. And in the ring, he was so intense. And I like working kind of loose, you know, and making things real easy. But Randy was so intense, man. When he'd pull on my bald head, he'd rip my hair out. And when he'd punch me, I'd say, God damn it, Randy, any more of those? And you're going to get one. But I loved working with him because he loved the business so much and he was so passionate about it. I'd never been around anybody who was that big of a freak about 24/7 loving this business. So I had great times, great matches with him. Then we had a falling out, and thank God we made up before he passed away, you know, and I miss him to this day.
Got a chance to barely meet him. I did a job for him at the Orlando TV tapings when we started filming down there way back in the day. Of course, I was a huge Savage fan, just like everybody else was. I wanted to work a program with him, but at the time, you know, the powers that be, I was just that guy. But my question to you is, because I've heard Dallas Page talk about him and, you know, they had a couple of good matches together, but you're traveling with him. You're one of his best friends. Did the guy ever relax? Because even some of the old interviews I used to see him on YouTube, I don't know if he was talking about you or not, but I mean, he's so high strung. Did the guy ever relax?
Mm-mm.
That's who he was.
He was so paranoid. Because when he first came to Poughkeepsie, Vince said, hey, peek out the curtain, look at this guy. Think you can draw money with him? And I saw Randy walk in, and he had a pair of jeans on with patches on. He was trying to be the Macho Man. He had just a little headband like this, leopard skin headband. His hair was hanging out with shades, and he didn't really have his wardrobe thing together. And I said, who's the girl? And Vince goes, oh, that's his life. I said, well, if the girl's with him, I definitely can make this work. I just really didn't know about him, but when I saw the girl with him, you know, and I knew from Ron Fuller and some of the guys up in Knoxville when Randy's dad was running opposition, they said Randy was real intense and a pretty good worker and just all kind of stuff. I'd seen him in Memphis a couple of matches, and I knew I could work with him, but if I had the girl, I knew we could really, you know, have a lot of liberty with the finishes and stuff like that. So when I first met Randy, one of the first things I did was I took him to the guy that made all the clothes for Jimi Hendrix and my rock and roll band, this guy named Michael LeBron. And Randy was real paranoid. Well, is this a setup? Why are you got me dressing up like this? He was really freaked out that the tassels and the stuff was a rib on him. He thought it was a rib, but then he realized it was not a rib. He got it. And man, he was the best at everything. I love working with him. You know, he was just so much fun in the ring. He's real intense. The only really bitch we had was Paris, France one night. We had shot an angle where Elizabeth was my manager. And when we went to the ring in Paris, there were no steps. Elizabeth was probably 95 or 100 pounds soaking wet. So I reached over the top rope, reached all the way over where she was standing next to the apron and grabbed her by the armpits. Picked her all the way up over, she had a dress on, picked her all the way up in the ring, and I put her in the ring because there were no steps. You son of a bitch, you grabbed her boobs. I'm going, Randy, what do you go? Fuck you, you motherfucker, I'm going to beat your ass. I'm going, Randy, come on. We lock up, he grabs a headlock on me, but he puts that shoot fucking side headlock on me.
Yeah.
I'm hanging in there, and I didn't want my eyeball to pop out, so I grabbed his waist, and I hooked him like a shoot, and I squeezed him. I said, Randy, if you don't let go, I'm going to dump you on your head. Now loosen up, bro. I did not grab Elizabeth's tits. You know, he was so pissed at me. The match sucked. We had a horrible match. We went back to the dressing room in Paris. I walked in. I said, Randy, we need to talk right now. Now, I'm not a tough guy, but I was mad. I reached to open the door, and when I pulled the door, I ripped it off the hinges. the door was so old and so rotted by termites.
Yeah.
Where it was screwed in, it looked like I pulled a Lou Ferrigno, and ripped the door up, but the door was barely hanging on there. So I ripped the door off, and all the boys were like, whoa, they popped,
Yeah.
So me and Randy went in the back and, hey man, I'm sorry I got mad. I said, Randy, I'm sorry too. I didn't mean to touch her inappropriately, but there were no steps. We talked about it, but I think the door was the thing that kind of cooled everything down, but it was hanging on by a thread. And when I pulled it, I was just lucky, it helped my bluff with it,
I want to come back to Randy about a big time match when you wrestled Andre at WrestleMania 3. But the other thing, if it's not too far out of line, you said you had an Ultimate Warrior story.